Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Designer Future. I've got a very special guest, actually his second time on the podcast. Matthew, just go and introduce yourself for me for anyone that hasn't seen the first one.
Yeah. My name's Matthew J. Phillips. I'm 19 years old from the UK. And I was on Ollie's podcast. I believe he said it was a year and 3 months ago. And that was kind of the start of my entrepreneurial business journey, and a lot's changed since then. So I'm coming back on, update you guys and have a general kind of talk with Ollie, share some ideas, and hopefully you gain some value from the podcast.
Wicked, cool. Yeah, so like Matthew said, he has been on here before. So one thing I really want to do with the podcast is I do want to get people who have been on here before. And one thing I like to ask at the end is sort of where they're looking to be within the next year. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly go back, see what we were sort of talking about at the end of last episode, and then sort of go moving forward with throughout the episode. So let's just quickly watch this back. I think this will be quite funny as well. I just want to drop it from about here.
No facial hair.
Yeah, like I said, we obviously try and keep each other accountable and stuff as well. What sort of, to wrap the actual video up, what sort of your goals for this year or next upcoming months or whatever?
So basically, I want my membership to have 500 recurring members.
Okay, cool.
Big one. I want to have a six-figure coaching business. So doing 8.3K a month consistently. Another big one is I want to pay for my parents, do on like a 2-week holiday.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where they want to go yet. I think it's either LA or Point Vegas. I don't know where the other one is, but pay for them to go. Yeah, go.
And sorry, have you told them that?
Oh, I told them.
Yeah.
Well, half and half. I basically told them, I asked my mother when she wanted to go. She was like, "Why?" And I was like,
Oh, right. So I just wanted to drop that little bit in there, just try and keep it in. I think it would be quite funny. So just quickly on the back of just sort of listening to yourself and the goals you have set, what does that do to you in terms of looking back at those goals, like emotionally?
I would say the biggest thing that stands out was expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So my expectation of what I would do in 12 months was high, right? Higher than my actual work ethic. So it was like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it was like, yeah, I was dead serious when I said, like, in my mind, I was going to do it. But my actual daily actions and like my kind of to-do list didn't match up of someone who was actually doing it. I would also say that some of the things, right, like, oh, I'm going to pay for my mother to go here and do this and do that, right? Like, yes, I have paid for my mother and father to go on nice places and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of it as well is, when you just make your first couple hundred, your first grand, your first $2,000 or whatever, right? And you just go off on this tangent because you see people buying their mother and their father Range Rovers and Rolexes, and you're like, oh, do you know what I mean? I'm going to do this as well. I'm going to buy my mother a house in 6 months and all this. So a lot of it was just, at the time I believed it, but it's just kind of coming off the dome, just like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. When, you've not really thought too much about it or put too much of a plan together. It's just kind of like, it would be cool to do. So you speak it.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, that's not a bad thing. And I still think by you physically saying those things out loud a year ago, you've definitely taken the steps relevant. And as well, we weren't saying that you was going to do that in a year, right? We was just saying that's what you want to do. So there's no reason that we don't, there's no reason that you're still not going to do that. So Matthew, with that being said, like, how have you sort of progressed in the last year? I know we've been speaking outside of the calls. You've invested into a couple of courses and a couple of coaches. Just explain to the viewers and the listeners a little bit, maybe some of the topics of the courses and coaches you've invested into.
Yeah. So I believe when we did that podcast, I was still helping, coaches get more leads, get clients, that type of stuff. But I was kind of working it out myself, right? So the students I had, they had like great results, right? Like we took one guy. I think if we did that a year, it would have been before that podcast. Yeah, I mean, we took one guy. He was 19 years old, right? He just left school and everything. He was like a part-time job in a trampoline park, and he was making
I remember the guy, yeah,
400 a month or whatever. And we took him to $1,000 a month in 3 weeks, right? So that success story was just like, oh, okay, I can do something with this. And yet I just kept working with people 19, 20 years old for a couple of weeks, couple of months, helping them get, a couple hundred and this and that and that and that. And, I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, the main reason I was helping them make their first grand was because I hadn't done the 3, 4, 5, 6 grand properly yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was like, I can only help someone to get to the same spot, that I'm
You're
in,
in,
essentially.
Yeah, sure.
But then they got to the point where it was just like, do you know what I mean? I was like, I got some students who are doing $1 grand, $2 grand a month as well now. I'm like, I need to, if I want to charge more and help these people more, I need to kind of do more. So I went a couple of months, didn't really do much. And then I want to say October last year,
Mm-hmm.
I invested in I invested in a coach. He cost me about $650, $700 or whatever on Facebook. And he kind of just coached me the whole Facebook game, right? Like in and out, how to grow my Facebook, how to generate leads, how to use what I'd built, like my knowledge on cold outreach or my knowledge on taking sales calls and my value and my offer, and how to kind of, showcase that on a platform like Facebook to generate leads and book more calls. And a big motivation in me investing in him was because I went on to Facebook for a couple of weeks and tried working it out myself. And I couldn't work it out. And I looked at his profile and he put up a screenshot of him saying how he made like 20 grand in 4 weeks. And he was like, I made 20 grand in 4 weeks. And all of these people reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at that and I was like, oh, because all the clients I was getting, I was going to them, booking them on a call and closing them.
I think,
I'm like,
sorry, as well, like one thing, sorry, just to jump in as well. I think
it.
that's like one of the main things that I've personally noticed for you as like a friend as well, is like I've completely seen the difference in you going from like outbound to inbound, like completely. And one thing, guys, for people that's watching and listening, is like Matthew is really, really good with his words. Like his copywriting is very, very good, I think, personally. Like, so he's smiling as well for you guys that are listening, right? But yeah, but no, honestly, like as well, like this is one thing that I've noticed so much as well over the last probably year, 2 years, is like, no matter what business you're in, no matter what product you're selling, is the story will sell it. Like I think the story will sell it. And that's one thing that Matthew's really been able to do well, is to put his story into words and make himself relatable to his audience. So yeah, sorry, carry on, man. I just wanted to jump that in.
Yeah, so I saw this guy and I was like, okay, so he's saying he's getting all of these clients, these sales, these call bookings from people coming to him, not the other way around. So I reach out to him and I'm like, how much, and this is going to tie into something we're likely going to cover, right? So I reach out to him and I go, how much is your coaching? And he's like, well, I can't tell you really yet because we'd have to get on a call and I'd have to explain it. So I'm like, okay, cool. How do I book a call with you? And he didn't have a call booking calendar, nothing, which is unusual, right? Because that's what I use. That's what everybody uses. So he was like, let's do Friday, 10 a.m. or whatever, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, I'm not in the UK right now, but I am from the UK. So we'll do a 10 your time. I'm like, cool.
Sure.
So we get on the call with him and we're going back and forth and I'm telling him about how, I would just love to have people come to me, not me always graft and have to go to them. So at the end of the call now, I go, what's the price? Now, I was expecting him to turn around and be like 2 grand, 3 grand, 4 grand. And he turns around and he goes, that's going to cost you about 650. So I'm like, 650 for you to give me what you're doing to do like 20 grand a month? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, how many calls do I get with that? He was like, I don't really care. What do you mean you don't care? And he was like, well, we'll do like 2 calls in the first week. And then we'll do like 2 calls in the second week, 2 in the third. And then like, we'll kind of slowly cut it down then when you don't need anymore. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go, well, look, I got the money, but I would like to kind of make another 600 on top of the money that I've got. So I'm safe. Now I was expecting him to do the whole, like, well, if you don't pay on the call, it's going to go up to 2 grand, that type of thing. And he was just like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. So I leave the call and I'm like thinking, every other call I've ever been on with people and that I've done myself, because I've been taught to go, hey, if you don't pay now, it's going to be 2 grand and all of this, right? This guy did the complete opposite. So I go off the call and I'm just like kind of shocked, right? Because I'm like, this guy, he's not doing this right. He's supposed to tell me I got to pay more and all this, right?
Yeah.
Go on.
No, I was going to say, and do you think like that sort of not saying like you would have then put yourself down in that category, but do you think that sort of highlights the whole like fake guru sort of people within this niche, as in like people that know their shit works as well? Like they come from a position of abundance, so it's like, okay, if you don't want to buy it, then don't buy it. It's not like, okay, yeah, if you don't buy it, it's going to be 2,000 pounds. Like if you come back next week, I think as well, like you can tell that this guy genuinely knows his shit works as well, because he's happy. And when you have that system as well, guys, and you actually love what you're selling and you love your product as well, like you will be happy to do what this person's done for Matthew, is like actually be like, look, this is what I do. This is what I'm going to show you. This is how much I'm going to charge. It's not going to be like some ridiculous waiver. It's like, also as well, like if you invest into the right coach as well, it's not going to be like, yeah, you get your 4 calls and then see you later. I'm not even going to reply to a message. Like he's obviously saying, I'm going to go above and beyond to help you. So yeah,
exactly. Here's what I took away the most from that. He didn't need my money.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right, like,
and that makes you almost want to throw it at him. Like, no, take it. Like, take it. Yeah.
Like now, that's not to say that saying like, hey, it's going to cost you more if you don't, doesn't work, and there's not a place for it. Now, I believe there is a place for it, and the only time there is a place for it is if the person's indecisive.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean by that. If you're speaking to someone and they're the type of person that can't make a decision for themselves, right? Because there are people like that, right? I've been on sales calls where they're literally like, hey, like, I want to do it, but I've got the money, but like, I don't know when this and that and that and that. In that situation, if I go, yeah, go on and buy, they're just going to talk themselves out of it. So, but if I know they truly need it, right, sometimes it can help to have a little bit of like urgency type to it, right? But not every call and not with every person. Now, he told me down the line that he read that I was the type of person that if he backed me into a corner and said, you got to pay now, then I'm just going to be like, bye. And he was like, I just knew that by speaking to you. So he was like, why would I back you into a corner when you're going to bite? And I thought that's a good way of looking at it. Why would I back someone into a corner who clearly isn't the type of character that's going to be backed into a corner? So anyway, I got off the call and I'm thinking, like, what? I'm like, so like you said, it made me want to pay him more. So I sent him a message after, and I wasn't comfortable with parting with 650 in full at the time, but I would have done 300 and then 300. So I messaged him a day after and I go, are you cool if I do like 325 now and then 325 in 30 days? I thought he was going to come back and be like, yeah, that's cool. He come back and he went, no. So I'm like, why can't I just do 325 now and 325 in 3 days? He's like, I just don't do it that way. And I'm like, well, why? And he wasn't like, he wasn't reasoning with me, right? Like, because why does he have to tell me why he runs his business? So he just come back and he was like, it's 600 in full, or it's, just, so he was just like, bro, you have to come back when you got 600.
Yeah.
But then he was like, I know you can make the 600 on your own, so I'll see you soon. Right. So he also had that bit of like, so I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll make 600. So I go off and I legit make 600 in the 7 days. I go back, send me the invoice, sends the invoice, I pay, we get started. First call, he goes, look, you've got this knowledge on outreach. You know how to take a sales call. You know how to book a call. You've got these systems in place. He's like, you're just looking for like more inbound leads, more people seeing you and your value. Is that correct? I'm like, that's correct. And he goes, okay, so let's set a goal. I'm like, okay. He's like, 30 days from now. Okay. I'm like, he's like, how much do you want to make? I'm like, well, I don't know if this is pushing it. I'm like, but how's like $3,000 in 30 days from starting? And he's like, so we'll count today as starting, $3,000 from there. And I'm like, yeah, go on, and we'll do that. So anyway, he walks me through how to post, the correct content on Facebook, not how to write the content, but like when to post it, why to post it, that type of thing. And more importantly, how to kind of take what I know and how I speak and how I write and my value and kind of display it in a way that gets people to go and hit my inbox up and go, hey, can I pay you? Can I speak to you in that way? So anyway, I get started 30 days. I checked my bank statement and it was like 3.25K. So I go back to him. I'm like, bro, I did 3,250. And he's like, sick. So I was like, okay, from this point on now I'm going to aim for 4 and 5 and 6, right? And I kind of averaged, I think the next month I did like 4K. And then it was like over Christmas, I was like sick. So that was like 2.5 or whatever. And then like last month, we did like, I think 8.5, something like that. So that's 6 figures, right? If you tally that over 12 months. So it's just gone up and up and up and up. So that was like one of the investments I made. And then one of the other investments I made this year was in another coach, and he cost me 2.5K. And what we covered, to be completely honest with you, it wasn't exactly what I expected. So I ended up working something out with him that suited us both. But one of the things he kind of taught me without actually teaching me, it was indirect, was the authoritative thing again, right? Like I didn't pick this up from Josh, the whole thing of being like, hey, I don't do payment plans. I only realized that because of this next guy I paid. He did the same thing. I was like, hey, can we do it this way? He was like, no. I'm like, well, and it was just, you're not going to bend. It was like, I got to work with you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So really I paid him the money, but I kind of like, I learned something from him indirectly. But yeah, so those are the two main investments I made to kind of take me to where I am right now. And it was, one, to get more inbound leads, and two, to just be more of an authority and not cave in and, allow people to take payment plans with me when I'm not comfortable, and to not work with people I don't want to work with, and learn to just be like, hey, it's my way, or, bye.
Yeah, and learning to say no as well, right?
Exactly.
Wicked, cool. So if you could sort of like, because everyone, the whole like organic method when it comes to Facebook is pretty basic when you sort of actually break it down, right?
Yeah.
If you could give someone like one tip when it comes to organic, when on Facebook, sorry, what would that sort of be?
I would say to follow like the 80-20 rule, although I prefer to go like 90-10, right? Now, what I mean by that is, when people say like the more you give, the more you get, in terms of like providing value, right?
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely true. So I went 4 or 5 weeks, I want to say, just blasting people with value on Facebook every day, right? A valuable post to my audience. Now, my target market is coaches, consultants, and mentors. That's who I help. So all my content was centered around helping those individuals, right? If you're a fitness coach and you help, guys lose fat, all your content should be completely centered around, weight loss, nutrition, mobility, recovery, the whole thing, right? So I'm blasting my audience with value for like 4 or 5 weeks on end. But by like, this is like mad, right? Because my mind was blown. That month, the first 30 days, I did that $3,000. I made 2.5K of that in the second week.
Nice.
So I went 1 week making like basically nothing, blasting people with value. Then the second week, I do 2.5 grand. Just like stupid, right? So my biggest tip is to overload your audience with value for like weeks. And then when you put out a post and say, hey, who wants to buy this or who wants to buy this? You've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 people lined up to buy, because you've built them up like a balloon, right? Like they're full of value, and then you just pop in and they're like, okay, how do I pay? So like that's an absolute game changer. And if you do it right with the right structure, right, you just repeat it, right? Every day, provide value. Every day, provide value. And you're literally building people up. Like think of it like a pot, right? It's like simmering. It's just like, shh. And then it starts bubbling until it just explodes. And you got to rush to people like, okay, I'll buy, I'll do this, I'll do that. And now I've got it to the point that when I'm consistent with my posts on Facebook, every week I got someone reach out and go, hey, I'm interested in coaching. How can I speak with you? I direct them to a call with me. They sign up, but they're booking the call to pay me.
Yeah.
Right. So when I'm on the call, I'm just like, okay, so they're like, how much is that? That's 1,500, done, paid in full.
Nice.
That's like major game changer.
I think as well, like what Matthew just said about like the first week or first 2 weeks, he got like nothing back. Facebook is definitely one of those platforms that you can continuously be putting work in and not notice anything. But then like one day you could literally wake up to like 50 friend requests to, you know, and loads of message requests and stuff. So it is one of those things that you could literally have like a snowball effect from it. And I always talk about like YouTube as well. For me, YouTube is a big platform, simply because I'm more of a video guy, but it's the same with YouTube. You can put a video out today and it will get like no views, but 3 years from now, it could be bringing you in leads on autopilot. So yeah, no, I really, really like that. So, when it comes to like your offer, how did you, because I know I don't really want to get into like your whole offer sort of thing, but how has your offer sort of adapted over the last year as well? Like, has it sort of changed as you've brought the price up, or is it fundamentally the same sort of thing?
It's fundamentally the same, but kind of pitched differently, structured differently, but more importantly, with more added, right? So I've always been helping coaches, you know, who are a level or levels, you know, below me in terms of progress, with, you know, sales over the phone, booking calls, lead gen, that type of thing. But now it's like more structured. So I sat down one day and I was putting a Google Doc together, and I was like, okay, so if we take a coach, right, a fitness coach, a life coach, a business coach, whatever, right, the first thing they need to do before they can go out and start making money and closing clients is you've got to have something you can actually offer, right? Sure. So I was like, okay, well, the first thing in helping a new coach is an offer. I'm not going to teach them sales if they've got nothing to sell. So I was like, okay, so the first thing is the offer. So I jot that down. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, so now if I help a coach get a good offer together, what comes next? I'm like, okay, well, I still can't teach you sales because, well, you need people to sell too. So then it was like, okay, next step is lead generation.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, break down lead generation. Again, we got two different parts. We got outbound and we got inbound. So I was like, okay, I can teach these coaches how to do outreach to book calls and how to post content in the proper way to get people coming to them. So I'm like, okay, that's that segment of the coaching program together. And I'm like, okay, now they know how to book calls, get leads, either through reaching out or people coming to them. What's the next step? I was like, okay, closing. So then I'm like, okay, that's the next step that I'll help people with. And I ended up coming up with this 3-pillar offer called the Organic Clients Program. Pillar number 1, mouth-watering offer creation. Pillar number 2, organic lead generation, covering how to get streams of leads and call bookings inbound and also outbound. And then pillar number 3, closing over the phone so you can seal the deal with every lead over the phone. 3 pillars, integrate them all together, and you've got everything you need to go from a struggling or beginner coach to a coach that's prospering.
Nice. Amazing.
So it's kind of all worked out.
Amazing. Cool. So obviously when we last spoke, we spoke about the guy that worked in a trampoline park. Is there a particular student or client that really stands out over the last year?
It sounds quite thin when I say it like this, but it's the truth, right? Too many. Like seriously, right? But like, and it's weekly, right? So this week we had a guy. His name's Devansh. He's actually from India, right? And he's only about 17, 18 years old, so about a year, 2 years younger than me. And he's a funnel builder, right? So he helps people put website design stuff together, funnels, you know, banners, that type of thing. And using one of our programs, similar to the one that I just said with the 3 pillars, right? There's 3 parts. So he paid us like $500 for one of our programs. So that's $500, 400-ish pounds. 3 parts, right? Part 1, part 2, part 3. We've only covered part 1 so far. Off of just part 1, remember now he paid $500 for this. He's made $9,000 already. So 500 in, 9 grand out, and we've only covered part 1 of the 3 parts. Another guy, Adam Smith, brand new. He started up a copywriting coaching business. He banked $7,000 in the first 5 days on Facebook.
Nice.
Sam Lowe, he did 23K with a brand new coaching business in like 6-8 weeks. It's just endless, essentially. Like we had a guy the other day, Gilberto, he's from Montreal, Canada, brand new coaching business, teaching dropshippers how to run profitable ads and that type of stuff. Booked 10 qualified sales calls, I think mostly inbound, in one day, in the first week or the second week. So it's just like it's like endless, right? And it's great because it just shows that if you're a coach or a consultant or you're a mentor, everything that we cover, like we are essentially, I believe anyway, the one-stop shop. for any coach, consultant, or mentor. If you've got a problem with closing, we've got you covered. If you've got a problem with your offer, we've got you covered. You've got a problem with leads, we've got you covered. You need more call bookers, we've got you covered.
Amazing, cool. So I think one thing I'd like to progress on to now is how has the back end side of the business grown within the last year as well? Because I know at the beginning you was doing everything by yourself. Are you sort of outsourcing anything now?
I brought on an assistant a couple of months ago, and she was doing a large proportion of cold outreach for me. She was setting the meetings, the times I'm available and this and that and that. And then I was in talks with a closer. And he was I had this vision, right, of I'm going to have every aspect of my business locked down and covered. And I'm essentially going to be completely removed and all of this, right? And it was working it was working. But then I started looking more at the people that I've been coached by who are making 20, 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand a month. And none of them have got any assistant, nothing. Right? So I'm speaking to them. I'm like, why don't you have a closer? And they're like, well, because I don't need one. I'm like, well, why? And they're like, I don't take enough sales calls. I'm like, but don't you want more sales calls? I'm like, yeah, then I'll bring one on then. I'm like, but I would take sales calls with people who've got the money and they pay me 4 or 5 grand a time. He's like, so I'll only take 4 months or whatever, but I'll make 30 grand. So I'm like, what do I need a salesperson to take 4 calls for?
Yeah.
So I kind of realized hey, I'm bringing on people to do stuff for me when I'm not even at the level where I should have people to do stuff for me.
Sure.
Do you get what I mean? I'm trying to hire someone to take a task from me that's only going to take me 30 minutes to do. Do you know what I mean? I'm not Bill Gates, right? So I was just it's not worth it. So now I've just completely run it down. I still have a V8 here and there sometimes, but I've completely jotted it all the way down to me. And I put the systems in place where my time is actually very controlled. I only take call bookings now with certain people. I've got a funnel, a call booking thing that kind of filters all of that out for me. A sales letter, a video sales letter that filters people out for me. I just post my content and I leave people come to me. So it's quite lean right now. And I've built a good foundation to add a team to down the line. But no, I just started to realize hey, I can get to 30, 40, 50 grand a month without anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And I think that is one thing as well. I know pretty much everyone will say yeah, you need to build a team to run a business online without you having to do the service delivery side of things. But that can also then translate into you almost trying to find jobs for people that you've hired that don't actually need doing, right?
Yeah.
And then what that's also done for me in the past as well is by almost trying to figure out jobs for other people, you almost then forget about the fundamentals.
Yeah, sure.
So
you take away from what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, you're almost not, I don't mean micromanaging, but of course, if you bring on a new team member and you then have to do all these different, you can have so many systems and whatever. I've got a whole training thing for new employees to come in and learn. But then it's okay, cool. But then they've still got to take 3 hours of their day to go through all this training. And I've probably still got to spend an hour with them to see if they took everything on board. So yeah, no, I totally understand. And I think that's great as well that you're sort of no, look, I've got all of these systems in place. I don't need anyone doing anything for me at this moment in time.
My problem was just trying to rush it. I think I might have brought this up on the podcast before. It's something I've always struggled with. I'm just one of those ones where it's I don't factor my age, right? And I believe that helps to a certain extent, right, with the progress that I've had. But it's also a detriment to a certain level as well. Because I don't factor my age, it's I need to do this now, right? I need this now. I need that now. And I'm rushing processes and adding in things and, buying courses and buying coaches and this and that to rush the process when and I believe this, right? I feel sometimes I'm trying to rush something where I'm when I actually look back at it, I'm hey, that wasn't your time. Right? It wasn't your time to make 7 figures.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And a big thing as well is when you look at some teens, right, my age, and they're doing 7 figures and this and that, right? Hey, if you speak to a lot of them and you speak to them, a lot of them will go, yeah, I make 7 figures in that. I'm like, okay, well, how do you do it? And they go, oh, I did it because I had to. And I'm like, why? And they're like, oh, my mother's going to lose the house and this and that, right? Like, now, fortunately, right, I've never been in a position where I've had to make 6 figures or 7 figures.
Yeah.
I know I'm not using that as an excuse, but what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I know
What
exactly
I'm trying to
what
say.
you mean. Yeah, I know exactly.
I'm trying to force myself to be like, you need 7 figures now.
Yeah.
But I can't get myself to take the necessary steps, because then I realize, no, I don't need 7 figures right now.
Mm.
And I feel like a lot of people who do make the 7 figures really quick, that we all look up to and like, whoa, look at this guy, look at this, look at that. But he didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It was sink or swim. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, now
I totally understand what you mean, because it's like, when you are in that position, and especially if you've gone from, like what you said, earning like nothing online to earning like 4K, you know, like I remember doing that 1 month and then just being like, sweet, like, sweet. And then just literally, and then for like a week doing nothing, like literally nothing. Yeah. But then that's exactly what you was just saying. It's like, I know that I've got so much family members around me. It's like, if that all went in the next week and like I got kicked out and had to sleep at, like, I'm not going to be sleeping at the bus shelter basically. So I totally understand that. It's like, you almost can get like a little bit complacent as well, especially if you then start doing good. It's like, okay, but then I think that's what you need to do, is like really flip the perspective. And it's like, you can see 4K as a lot of money, or you can see it as like nothing. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, but I've definitely been in that position before, where it's just like, okay, I'm good, like I'm happy, and it's like, what is that 20K a month actually going to bring you? So no, I totally get that.
Like I had like one of my first months where I did like, so when I did that $3,000 for the first time in 30 days, my mindset immediately after doing it was, and like, I don't do this anymore, which is why I feel like I'm making more again, right? But like, honestly, like when I think about it now, I'm like, that's the total wrong mindset to have. The minute they hit my account, the first thing I did was, in my head, I was calculating how many months of bills could I pay with just that $3,000.
Yeah.
I'm setting myself up to say there's no need to make any more money until then.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's very interesting how, when you don't have external factors pushing you forward, how easier it is for you to just go, okay, I'm cool. Which is something I'm still kind of, working towards now, which is why my income increases on, but it's how do you get that to the point where you're essentially very rarely complacent. And I kind of feel like you can't cheat that process, and it just comes from a continuous, cycle of working on yourself and telling yourself every single month, you need to make more, you need to update, you need to do this, you need to do that, until it just clicks, and then you continue to kind of elevate from there on.
Definitely. So one thing I know you wanted to sort of jump in and talk about was some of like what is it, like news article stuff that was coming through recently?
Oh yeah, I mean, like that. Yeah, because I've had some people ask me about it. So like the past week or whatever, I managed to get into Fox News, ABC, NBC, New York Weekly, Medium, Kivo Daily, and I'm trying to get into Forbes and that in the next couple of days, weeks, or whatever. And I just wanted to bring it up because I've had a lot of people message me and go, how have you done it? How do you do it? How can I do it? And all of this and all of that. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Did you write them yourself?
No, I didn't write them myself. The editor of the actual article things writes them. But like,
no, it's just saying, that was someone I know has done that before, and he literally just wrote like 4 articles about himself and then like blasted it out.
Oh, yeah.
That was what you done.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. I didn't write them myself. I just got fortunate to know a guy who knows a guy, essentially, right? But just to clarify for a lot of people, right? I got blessed to know a guy who knows a guy. But if you want to get into the media with your business, Fox News, Forbes, Entrepreneur, this, that, and that, right? You can pay your way in, right? And it's not much.
Exactly.
Like, I'm actually, because I know the guy who knows the guy, I'm able to kind of, help people with that now. But yet it's not actually much, right? Like you can get into Forbes for like, it might be a lot for some people, but in the grand scheme of things, is
yeah, and as well, like not to really like dumb this down as well, like just from like my perspective as well, like it's like if Matthew knew that he wanted to do that, right? So if you know that you want to do that, then there's probably only 3 or 4 touches or 3 or 4 steps to take to have that done. But it's like if you don't know that you want that, you don't know if you want to be featured in a a newspaper or whatever, blah blah. Then of course you're never going to do it. But there's something in you, right, that you wanted to do that. You've obviously
absolutely. I can share it, right? So this was the perspective. I'm at a point, fortunately, with success stories and testimonials and customer reviews and stuff where I'm grounded, right? Like, if you look at my sales page, nobody's going to question anymore whether I can deliver upon it or whether my prices are worth it, right? So that's done and dusted. But I heard this quote before, and I can't quote exactly what it was, but it was along the lines of saying, you can never have enough social proof.
Yeah.
Right? And I agree with that. So you can never have enough credibility behind you, in my personal opinion. And I was like, okay, well, what's a great way of adding more social proof?
Mm-hmm.
Being featured in the news,
podcast,
right?
Yeah.
If you've got your program or your offer or your business or your brand or your store or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
In any like Fox, BBC, ITV, whatever, right? There's a lot of people that don't know you can pay your way into that.
Mm.
So they look at it and just go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
How's it done that? Instant social proof. Any business owner that doesn't think it makes sense if you've got the money is foolish.
And sorry, just to jump in on that sort of topic as well, because there's a podcast we're working with at the moment, and they're a football podcast, right? Only started about 35 days ago, completely like blown up in the last 30 or 35 days. And one reason that they blew up is they interviewed someone that's already got like a pretty big following. So it was like, and it was relevant. It was niche relevant. Like it's a football podcast and they bring on like someone really big in the football podcasting industry. So straight away they've got relevant people on there. But one main thing that we noticed from them is like people from like the Telegraph, like all of these like English, like football, sports, like newspaper people and publications, right? They literally ate that episode up. So they was literally pulling parts of the podcast and they was pulling it and writing articles about their story. So then all we done was we reached out to those guys and just said like, look, we'll give you an exclusive to this information because obviously no one else got this information. This is very like niche topics that these people are speaking about. It was like, we give you this episode a day before it gets released. And obviously you can then write a story about it and link back to the podcast. So it's like, same like with Matthew, like the people that have been writing about Matthew, that's their job. They need stuff to write about. So if you can give them information to write about, then of course they're at least going to be receptive to it, whether they write about it or not. And that's why what I was talking about, I actually read that in a book. I can't think of what her name was, an Australian lady about running an online business. And that's one thing that she talks about is like the importance of PR, getting your story out there. And one thing she says in the book is like, if you can't find someone to do it yourself, write your own articles and then just blast it. Like, do you know how many, and that's when you think about it, do you know how many like people there are like that? Like there's so many newspapers, like business articles, like so much. If that's what you want to do, then you'll be able to do it easily.
Like one thing I can say though, right, is, don't take that media and PR is like the cheat code to social proof, right? Like, yes, it helps, right? It will not ever, right, beat actual customer reviews and success stories. It'll never beat that, right? Like your number one social proof is going to be other people who've bought from you that vouch for you every time. But if you've got a lot of that and you want to add a touch of something different, a little bit more flavor, right? Media, PR, it's a go-to, right? Like it's not a lot of money and you can get anything you want wrote about you in some major publications, which adds, again, stupid credibility to you. And again, think about it, right? If you've got a great program, you've got a great offer, you've got incredible value or a message that you want to share with your audience or the world, being and having your own full article dedicated to you, your cause, your message, whatever, in a publication like Forbes is stupid brand awareness, right? So, you know, I just wanted to kind of tell people again, right, like focus on getting customer reviews, success stories and that, but a great way to add and build on top of that, media, PR, right? Plus, a big reason for me doing it as well is verification, right? I want to get verified on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
So on Instagram, I've got the following, right? But when I was building my following, and that's a whole story in itself, I was always like, oh, I want the blue tick, right? Because I started building my Instagram following when I was like 16, right? So the blue tick was like this glorified, like, I need to get this blue tick. So I was like, I really want the blue tick. And then I kind of fell into the, you know, the thing of being like, oh, I need 1 million followers, 2 million followers. So just got to the point where I was like, I can't bother to get the blue tick, right? And then I find out that it's actually got nothing to do with your following, right? It's, you got to be an authentic person and this and that and that, which we essentially all are, right? Unless you're using someone's identity. But it mainly all comes down to the last bullet point that they have on their website, which is newsworthy, right? You've got to be someone that is classed as newsworthy. Now, or any of us can do that, right? Like, let's go down Tesco, Asda, right? Get on the counter, get naked, do something crazy, right? We'll have media and we'll have a blue tick. I'm not going to do that. So it was like, okay, how else do you get into it? Okay, well, you do something like this crazy business-wise, right? Are any of us going to do that anytime soon? Quite unlikely. So it's like, well, what's the best way of doing it? Get into some media publications and have them speak about you, your product, and your offer. Boom, right? I believe it's 12 to 18 is the average for verification. Apply for verification. Blue tick on IG, blue tick on Facebook. More credibility to your business again.
Nice quality. Well, with this coming to an end, you know what I'm going to ask you? If we used to jump back on Feb 2021, where are you hoping to see yourself? We're going to have some weird like time framings of going through like a portal.
Yeah. That's a good question.
Is it more so like the money now? Are you thinking of that 7 figures like you was, or is the mindset completely changed that it's not really?
Like, obviously it's still like I won the 30 grand a month and 40 grand a month and that and now, right? But it's not like I am putting like on a board anyway where I'm like 30 grand is the goal, right? Like a month, that's what I want. I'm just kind of cruising right now, constantly, you know, looking at what I need to do, making sure I'm doing it, watching my, you know, customer success stories, student success stories grow and this and that and that and this. I'm just kind of going with the paces. That's about it really. But if we're talking material, is there anything material I want? I mean, a Rolex, that's about it, right? Like, that's the only thing I can think of that I could possibly say off the top of my head that I'd like to have by then. That's about it. Otherwise, other than that, I'm just going through the motions and constantly evolving and growing.
Wicked, man. Wicked. Well, thank you again for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure we'll have you back again sometime next year.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for watching and listening at home. And I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye.
Hollywood 6.